Hi, everyone. My name is Waleed Faruqi. I'm the VP of Agentic Engineering at MindHYVE AI. I work on our agentic systems, and I work on the models that power our systems. Today, we're going to be giving a demonstration on Cursor and AI-assisted coding in the MindHYVE Cursor webinar. Thank you all for joining and taking the time to learn with us and join us for the future of AI-assisted software development. We'll be selecting and answering your questions live at the end, so stick around for the QA at the end. MindHYVE AI has partnered with the California Institute for Artificial Intelligence, the CIAI, to make AI education more accessible. So keep that in mind as CIA is a major authority in the AI assisted coding space. So Cursor itself has really modernized and shifted our development practices at MindHYVE. We went originally from multi-person, typical agile sprints, where we would have 3 to 4 people working on a single feature for up to a week, now to where we're able to ship out features within 1 week with just one developer. AI assisted coding has absolutely transformed our ability to innovate and to ship, and we believe that software engineers collectively will all be moving towards AI first and AI assisted coding in the coming years. It's only going to continue to become more proliferant. And so we believe that it's very important for anyone interested in engineering or technology or software engineering to keep this as a fundamental skill in their tool set. And I always say in the 1960s, 1950s, we were coding with punch cards, with binary pieces of paper that we'd run through a machine, and we graduated to the coding that any software engineer or a computer science student is familiar with. And in the coming years, it'll just be natural language. With the advent of AI, you'll just be able to talk to an AI and have a piece of software built for you. And that's kind of what we've began with here at MindHYVE, and will continue to grow as the models get better and AI coding tools get better. So again, MindHYVE has partnered with the California Institute for Artificial Intelligence to make AI education more accessible. As part of that partnership, everyone attending the session will have access to a special offer on the CIAI's flagship program, the Dawn Directive, which is a certification course designed to help you master AI skills for your career. Stick around until the end, and we'll share all the details on how to claim that offer. And so we will be beginning here shortly with a demo of Cursor. And once again, drop any questions, and we'll pick and choose those to answer at the end. Thank you.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Cursor AI webinar series by MindHYVE AI. I'm really excited to have you here today. My name is Ubaid Mujahid. I'm Vice President of AI Engineering at MindHYVE AI. So in the next 30 minutes, you'll get to see what it's like to work with Cursor, not just as a coding assistant, but as a genuine AI teammate. Whether you are a beginner exploring AI in code or a senior developer looking to speed up your workflows, today's session will basically show you what happens when you give agency to an AI and just let it build. Let's move on to the next slide. So here's our plan for the session. We'll basically start with a quick intro to AI and Cursor, what it is and why it matters. Then we'll understand how Cursor actually works, its features and advantages. After that, I'll show you the best Cursor settings and configurations for maximum productivity. Then Cursor will take over as an AI developer and we'll build a real sentiment analysis web app together. Finally, we'll be sharing the best prompts and developer tips for working with Cursor effectively. And at the end of this webinar, we'll be having a question answering session. Let's move on to the next slide. So what is Cursor? Cursor is an AI-first IDE, a development environment which is basically built on top of Visual Studio Code. but redesigned around the idea of working with AI. It's not just a plugin or assistant, but it's a collaborative coder that understands your entire project, and developers should care about it because traditional IDEs are great for writing code, but they don't understand code. Cursor changes that as it reads your project structure. It can create your project structure from scratch, your dependencies, your functions, and can reason across files like a human teammate would. So if I'll compare Cursor with traditional IDEs, so let's take an example of GitHub Copilot. So if I'll compare Cursor with GitHub Copilot, then the autocomplete feature is something which is provided by GitHub Copilot as well, but it's not context aware. In case of Cursor, it's very good and it's much um context aware. Similarly, if I'll talk about the multi-file understanding, then it's quite limited in GitHub Copilot, but in Cursor, it's very good. Also, the natural language chat is something which we do in Cursor, but in GitHub Copilot, it's also quite limited. So Cursor is having advantages over GitHub Copilot. Preferably, I would say like GitHub Copilot is not that usable if we'll compare it with Cursor because there is no comparison, and in my opinion. So similarly, Cursor is not just suggesting syntax, it knows your code base, and that's something which basically changes everything. So why does Cursor exist? If I'll talk about it in detail, then we already know like why does Cursor exist. But because coding shouldn't feel like managing a machine, it should feel like collaborating with another developer. So Cursor was basically designed to make that coding faster, smarter, and more human. And it basically listen to your goals, understand your code, and take initiatives. So that's something which I would say the Cursor mindset is something like that. When you work with Cursor, you are not typing commands, you're giving it missions. You say what you want, and Cursor figures out how to do it. So that's how basically Cursor works for us. So if I'll talk about the key features of Cursor, then let's talk about the chat mode, which I'll definitely show you when I'll be showing you the demo. We'll have the edit mode in Cursor, the deep context, the AI autocomplete features, and similarly, it basically provide us the AI autocomplete features on predicts not just the next token, but the intent. Similarly, if I'll talk about the documentations and debugging perspective, Cursor generate doc strings, readmes, and test, and even find bugs in our code bases. So that's something which makes it very good. So if I compare Cursor desktop versus Cursor web, then there's a big difference. So Cursor desktop is something which you could say like a local environment. You can just download it from Cursor's website, and it will be running in your local desktop, and it's basically great for full scale projects. Similarly, if I'll talk about the Cursor web, then it's lightweight. It can run on our browsers. It's great for learning and small demos, but I wouldn't prefer it. So if all of you or anybody of you wants to download Cursor, then you can just go to the Cursor website. I'll definitely show you the website as well, and you can just download it on your desktop. Similarly, if um, if uh, if I'll talk about the free versus paid version of Cursor, then Cursor has basically two tiers. And the free tier is something in which we'll be having the smaller context window, the slower responses. And if I'll talk about the pro tier, then it's basically providing us full context, and the priority models are available in full tier, and it's basically able to handle large project handlings. And for professionals and teams, it's better to go with the pro tier. It's quite expensive, but as there are so many people here who are basically students, so you can just start with the free tier, and you can just build small projects using that free tier. And there's some subscription which is, I believe, like a $20 per month. So you can go with that subscription as well, which basically provides us like 500 calls per month, something like that. So for this webinar, we'll be using Cursor Pro, and you'll see you'll see its full power in our demo. So now let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so it's a demo time. So let me go to the cursor now. And before that, I would like to show you like how you can basically download Cursor from internet. For downloading Cursor, you can just go to the browser and write cursor.com/download. So here's the website, which is official website. You can easily download Cursor from this website, and we are having the latest version, which is 1.7 available here. And if you're using Mac OS, then you can go with these versions. Similarly, for Windows and Linux, these versions are available. So I'm not going to download it as I'm already having it in my desktop. So I'll be just moving to the demo part now. So let's go. So we can just start our project from here, or we can also clone our GitHub repositories if we want to start from our existing code bases or any of your existing projects. So let's go to open project. And so firstly, we need to create an empty folder. So I have already created it. So that's an empty folder which I have created. So let's go inside that folder, and here we are. Okay, so here you can see that we are having a chat mode here, and that's our agent, which will be utilizing to implement everything. The complete project will be implemented using that interface. Firstly, I would like to show you a little bit about Cursor AI settings. So these are some of the general settings. We can set them based on our preferences. Similarly, you can see that they have mentioned that they are not using our data to improve or to train Cursor. They are just storing it to personalize our experience. So that's what they have mentioned here. Similarly, if I'll go to the chat mode, then you can see in default mode, we'll be having three modes, agent mode, plan mode, and ask mode. So these are the three modes we'll be utilizing to implement our complete project using Cursor. And if I go to the models, then you can see that we have bunch of models available here. We can use any of them, and uh, mostly we're having GPT models, we are having Claude models. Similarly, Gemini, the Google models are also present here. So for my projects, I'm mostly utilizing Claude models and GPT as well. So it depends on you, whatever you guys are implementing. So you can just experiment with all these models. Similarly, we cannot discuss each and every feature in this webinar. We'll be having some other sessions as well. So I'll just tell you about some of the main settings so that we are aligned and you guys are good to go and start using Cursor. So here we are at rules and memories, and you can see that in rules and memories, I have multiple user rules here. And these rules are basically something which we are basically using to make our experience better. We are providing some instructions to Cursor, and based on those instructions, Cursor will always behave that way. So let me show you about these prompts. So here we are. You can see that I have given a complete detailed user rule to Cursor, and I'm guiding him that he is a elite software engineering assistant specializing in web development, generate production ready code following these strict guidelines. And these are some of the core principles: technical standard, technical expertise, response formats, and that's how I've mentioned about the running platform. Like as I'm basically running it on Windows OS, so I just want it to be customized for Windows. So you can see that. So that's how you can just make these cursor rules, and it's very simple. You can just go to ChatGPT and you can ask ChatGPT that you want to create some cursor rules, and you can just get some template from there, and you can add whatever you think you needs to be added in that template. So that's how you can just easily create these cursor rules, and these are very important because it can definitely help you boost your productivity, as some people come to us and say like Cursor is not giving us good responses because they are not using these settings in Cursor. So these settings are very important for all of us. Similarly, you can go to indexing and docs, and you can see that I'm basically indexing my complete code base here. So in that way, it will basically provide me a better code suggestions, and it will be able to write better code because it's already knowing about my code base. Like everything, my complete code base has been indexed in Cursor. So this setting is also very important if you want to boost your productivity with Cursor. So now let's go to Cursor and let's start implementing something. Okay, so we'll be starting with the ask mode. Right now, as we are basically in a plan mode where we'll be understanding the problem, we'll get suggestions from AI, and once we are good with it, then we'll move to the plan mode where we'll be basically implementing a structured approach for our complex tasks which we are going to implement in this project. And lastly, I'll go to the agent mode and we'll let Cursor build the complete solution for us. Okay, so let's start with ask mode. Okay, so here I have written a prompt. You can see that I want to build a complete AI-powered sentiment analysis web application for customer reviews. Help me plan the architecture and technology stack. So let's give that prompt to Cursor. It's quite a big prompt. I have also added the requirements like for the front end and back end and some of the features which I have added. But even though like if you're not adding these requirements or instructions, Cursor can also give you suggestions and it can help you to implement all that. So let's not give these requirements and these questions. Let's just give that prompt to Cursor. Okay, so you can see that Cursor have mentioned like we got a response, and we are starting with a clean workspace. Let me create a comprehensive plan for your AI-powered sentiment analysis web application. So for the front end, it's giving me React 18 with TypeScript. Similarly, Tailwind CSS and White React Query Chart.js. For backend, it's giving us Node.js with Express.js and the blob storage, Cosmos DB. So these are some of the recommendations which is provided by Cursor to me. And like it's quite Azure centric because of the Cursor rules which I have set up here. So if I'll go there, you can see that there are some of the Microsoft standard rules I have set here. Okay, so these are the rules. So I have said like treat every change as production born, designed for security, reliability, performance efficiency, and it's basically Microsoft Alliance. Prefer Azure services patterns and reference architecture when relevant. So that's the reason it's recommending me most of the Azure services and the architecture. So now you can see that it has given me the project structure as well, including the front end and back end. And you can see that this is the complete response, including the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and 4. So it's basically a complete uh, plan which is given to me by Cursor. So what I'm thinking is like as you see, like I have already created a detailed prompt for that, in which I am basically asking Cursor for backend. I'm just telling about fast API with OpenAI. So, okay, what I'm thinking is like I want to implement my backend in Python. So that's just my choice because I'm a Python developer, and Docker containerization, it's all which is already added here. We can ask these questions about like the technology stack for this project. How should I structure for the project for scalability? So this is, I've just added this question here because in ask mode you can ask whatever you want to. So this is an example, like whenever you have implemented your complete project or when you are implementing it, you can just go to the ask mode and ask as many questions you want to ask for, and any improvements which you're thinking you want to make in your existing project. So the ask mode is something which is specifically designed for that. Okay, so you can see that it has basically updated the technology stack as I am a Python developer. So now it will be using fast API, Python, and all that stuff here. So yeah, we're good to go. You can see that we are also able to see the system architecture here. It will be React front end, fast API, OpenAI API for sentiment analysis, and these are some of the services which Cursor will be utilizing. So, okay, now what's the next prompt which I'm going to give it? Okay, so firstly, I would like to tell you a little bit about about the ask mode. So we have used ask mode because we wanted to get some architectural guidance without generating code. And it also allow us to discuss about the trade-offs and best practices to implement our project. And as you guys can see, like it's your advisor. The ask mode is something which is your advisor whenever you are starting to implement some project or you're starting with your coding. Okay, so now let's go to the plan mode and see, like, based on our discussion, create a comprehensive implementation plan for sentiment analysis application. We can also add requirements if you're having any specific requirements, like I've added few requirements here. So you can also add these requirements if you want to, but right now I'm not adding it. So this single line would also be enough because there are so many people who are just joining this webinar for the very first time. They might be new to Cursor. So let's not add all these details because they're something when you'll be proficient with Cursor, then you'll understand like how to prompt better and all that. So right now, just give that prompt. Let's go to plan mode, enter. Okay, so you can see that Cursor is creating a comprehensive implementation plan for sentiment analysis application based on our discussion. Let me ask a few critical questions to ensure the plan matches your exact needs. So basically, Cursor is asking me few questions like about the database, the authentication requirements, the CSV file structure expectations, real-time analysis behavior, mock data fallback trigger. So as we're new to Cursor, we don't know about all that. So plan mode is something which you can utilize if you are like if you're proficient or if you're using Cursor for a little bit of time, you have some understanding of Cursor, then you'll be able to understand all these modes. So plan mode is something new. We can also skip that for now. If we'll just go to agent mode and we'll say like just start implementing the complete project, it can still do that. But I just wanted to show you like how that plan mode works. So that's why I've just showed you like that's how it's basically providing us the suggestions, and we can just plan whatever we want to plan. We can do some R&D. So if it's giving us this response, and if you're new to all these technologies, you haven't coded in your life, you can just go to ChatGPT, you can paste that, and ChatGPT will tell you about what should you use, and you can just tell ChatGPT like right now you're having some limitations if you're having, and you can continue without database. You can just have a local CSV file. Local file handling can also be utilized here. Okay, so I'm just going into the agent mode now, so we can just start implementing the complete project. Okay, so let's give it a prompt. Implement the complete sentiment analysis application according to our plan. Okay, so here we are. So you can see that we're having a to-do list here. Firstly, it will be creating a complete project directory structure and configurations files. Then it will be setting up fast API backend with core structure, dependencies, and then it will be implementing OpenAI service for sentiment analysis. Then it will create waiter-based mock sentiment service, set up database models and schemas and all that stuff. So you can see that Cursor is basically starting implementing the complete project. So it will definitely take some time as there'll be a lot of code Cursor has to write. So let's wait for it. Once it will be done, then I'll just show you like what code have been written by Cursor, and then we'll just move on from there. Okay, so now you can see that Cursor have implemented the complete code base for us. Here's the backend. You can see that complete code is present here and it's well structured. If I go to the front end part, you can see that in source will having all the files here. So that is pretty awesome that with just few commands, we are able to create a complete web app. And it's a complete product. You could say like it's a small product. It's a MVP, but in just a minimal amount of time, we are able to create that without writing a single line of code with Cursor. So now I just wanted to see if it's fully functional, if the back end and front end is running. So I want Cursor to give a command. I want you to make two files which I'll run to make So what we can do is like we can just ask Cursor to run these application, the backend and front end here. But what I'm thinking is like I want to have some files which I'll be just running and I'll be able to run the backend and front end both. So it's better if we just have that script because it will definitely help us to run both the front end and back end. So we can just run both servers and we'll be able to see the demo. Okay, so you can see that it has created batch files. I just asked Cursor to create it for the backend and front end, but it have also created the setup project.bat for initially setting up the project, including the dependencies. Like it will be setting up the environment and installing the dependencies. After that, it's also giving me the file for starting both servers. So I'm just giving it a starting point, but it's thinking on its own like what other files needs to be added here. So that's how Cursor basically thinks. Even though if you have missed something, if even if you're a programmer and you don't remember like what are the dependencies of that step, Cursor knows that. So that's the plus point for each of us. Yeah. Okay. So we're good to go now. So now what I'll be doing is like I'll just open CMD here. Okay, so before running our front end and back end, what I would like to tell you is you guys should know about what these bat files are. So these bat files are basically used to automate command line tasks in Windows. So that's why I've just created them. Similarly, you can also create some or use some other methods which can also give you the same results. But right now, I'll just tell you about this method. And you have Cursor, you can use Cursor, and you can find everything. So Cursor is here for you. Let me ask that query let's go to the chat mode first. Okay. Okay, so now what I want is like the files are created. I'm having these start backend, these start front end files in my directory. But what I want is like as I'm new to Cursor, I haven't used it before. It's my first time, right? For all of you, I'm doing this. Okay. So what I would say to cursor is I want to run these .bat files. Could you please tell me how do I run them in my CMD? Okay, so when I just asked that query to cursor, it basically given me a few tips and tricks, and there are few methods it has given me. You can see like double click in the file explorer, double click on any .bat files to run it, or using a command prompt, you can just go to the CMD, you can go to your directory, and you can just simply run first time setup for installing dependencies. So let's go and do it. As we are already in our directory, so I don't need to run this command, but let's run this setup project command here. Okay, oops, it's giving me an error. So what kind of error is it? Okay, so it's saying this term setup project.bat is not okay. I got it. So what we need to do is like we basically need to add // here. Okay, so now it's running, and you can see that it's installing all dependencies. Okay, so now you can see that it's giving me a command. You can see that command like it's .start backend.bat. So what I'll be doing is like I'll be just running that command here, and you can see that our application, our backend is basically successfully started, and we can just access our backend using that link. Okay, so here we are. You can see that we have designed our fast API. It's a complete API. You can see that we are having a health endpoint, and 4 post endpoints are present here, including predict, batch CSV, and insights. So this is our backend API, which is fully ready. It's a sentiment analysis API. So now let's go to the cursor, and we'll be asking cursor about the front end. So let's run our front end as well. Let's create another CMD here, and we can just change that backend to front end. Okay. Let's go to that. Oh, so our web app is fully ready, and you can see that here we are at our sentiment analysis web app, which is powered by MindHYVE AI. We are having analyze option, a batch upload, insights, and here it is where we are having the complete project description, what we have used there, and all details have been present here. And it's powered by MindHYVE AI. So we can just look at that project overview. Like this is a sentiment analysis web application, which is designed to help businesses, individuals, to understand customer feedback through advanced AI-powered text analysis. The application can process individual reviews or batch upload CSV files to analyze sentiments, extract key aspects, and generate comprehensive insights. So this is a complete product which we have just implemented using Cursor, and you can see that we are having our complete app fully functional. All details have been present here in About section. We can make any changes, any modifications the way we want to by just simply prompting cursor the way we did. And you can also design your own products in a very little amount of time using cursor. So let's give it a query. So here we are having few examples. So let's give it that example. Oh, so I have given that review, and you can see that I love these headphones, great sound quality and comfortable fit. And you can see that we are having a confidence score of 90%. Extracted aspects are quality, satisfaction, and it's classified as positive. We're also having AI analysis reasoning here. You can look at it. Similarly, if I'll go to the batch upload, then we can just upload a file here and you'll be able to perform some analysis on that, on those customer reviews. So whether you're an e-commerce store or whatever whatever business you are running, if you're having customer reviews, you can just upload these customer reviews here and you'll be able to analyze about the customer sentiments and the customer feedback in with a lot of detail. Okay, so right now I'm not having any CSV file, so let's go to the cursor and go to agent mode. I want you to provide me a CSV file which okay, so I told cursor that thanks cursor, great work. Our front end and back end is fully functional. Now I want you to provide me a CSV file which contain few customer reviews. I'll upload that file in our web app to see how well our system is classifying sentiments. Please save that file in my current directory. Let's see how it goes. So here you can see that cursor is creating a file for us. It's a CSV file. Okay, so here we are. You can see that we are having all the sentiments here. Total 5 reviews have been uploaded. 3 are positive, 1 is negative, and 1 is neutral. So you can see that we are having all the details with the confidence score as well. We are also having the aspects here, and we can also download these results. Okay, so if I just download these results, you can see that in our CSV file, we are having text, sentiment, confidence score, and aspects column, and all details have been added here. So that sounds like a great implementation of using Cursor. Like we have just implemented a complete web app, and you guys can also implement some great products using Cursor if you know how to use Cursor, and we'll be here to help you with all that. And MindHyve is here to guide you with this webinar series. Okay, so so now if I just go back, Okay, so here we can see that we are having complete web application, fully functional, and everything is working. And so now I think we are good with this webinar. We have implemented a complete end-to-end project. So that's how you can implement complete products. If you're fluent with Cursor, if you're AI literate, then it's very easy for everyone. Even though if you don't know how to write code, you can just simply start using Cursor. You can after some time, you'll be able to implement such products in a very, very short amount of time. All right. So that's our journey with Cursor AI. We started with a blank workspace, gave our AI teammates some goals, and together we built a fully functional sentiment analysis web app, including front end, back end, and it's fully deployment ready. So we'll be also having a question answering session now. But firstly, I would like to summarize our complete session. So, to summarize, Cursor has three powerful modes, including Ask, Plan, and Agent mode. Each mode has a specific purpose, from suggestions to autonomous development. So we gave it autonomy and it responded like a capable teammate. The right mode selection makes all the difference in productivity. So what I would like to say to all of you, to all the participant, is if you haven't tried it yet, go to Cursor and install Cursor. Treat it not as a feature, but as a colleague. Ask it to build something for you, and you'll be surprised how far it goes. Thank you for joining today's session from all of us at MindHyve AI and from our newest developer, Cursor. So happy ending, and we'll be sharing a guide with you, and that guide is basically containing some best prompting tips and some best prompts which you can basically utilize if you're a developer or if you're just starting with development using Cursor, then this guide will definitely help you as your starting point. So we'll be also having a question answering session in few minutes. And if you guys are having any questions, please feel free to ask, and we'll be able to respond your questions, and we'll try our best to guide you. So thank you all for joining. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you, Abed, for a great demo. That was a wonderful introduction from, I'm sure, for many of these people who it's their first time viewing an AI assisted coding tool. That was wonderful, great first product. And yeah, it's very impressive that we were able to pull that off in just under an hour. So I believe now we'll be opening up the question and answer, and we'll be talking. The first one here is from Muhammad, who's asking, which is better, Tray or Cursor, and why? So I personally am not familiar with Tray, Trae. Uh, However, as a general rule, because there are many different AI coding tools out there, it really comes to your level of complexity that you're willing to work with. So Cursor is very close to code. I'm not sure about Tray itself, whether that outputs code or if you the user are able to look at the code. But there are a host of many tools. There's Claude Code, there's Gemini CLI, there's GPT Codex, there's Replit, there is Lovable, and so it's really about the depth of which you're willing to be close to the code and be close to the deployment of the underlying applications. Some will be simpler than others. Some will be more complex. Some will be powered by more expensive models. Some will be cheaper. It really comes down to how much money are you willing to spend and how deep are you willing to get into the complexities of the underlying application. We have our second question from Nader. How does Cursor help product and project managers while working with a bunch of developers? This is a great question. It comes in mainly two categories. One is ideation, two is information retrieval. When a product or project manager, if specifically for product, a product manager is very quickly able to ideate on ideas and see a working proof of concept. This is great for product managers who deeply understand a domain's a domain's problems and has deep domain expertise, they're able to spin up prototypes quite quickly and legit check and see if they're viable or not. Secondly, it allows product and project managers to understand code at a high level very quickly. So the AI itself can dive into a code base that multiple developers are working on, and understand what the latest changes were, what those changes mean, what technology is the application built on. It can do a cost-benefit analysis when you're using external tools. So there are many ways that a product and project manager can dive into code and extract out human meaning and really business knowledge out of that code without needing to be a developer themselves. If Cursor can understand the full context of your entire project, how close are we to an IDE that actually collaborates like a teammate, not just a tool? This is a great question, and it underscores whether or not the IDEs that we currently have actually collaborate like a teammate. And I would argue that Cursor does collaborate like a teammate. When we use it in our developing sense, we're ideating product with it. We're having it look at the code base and say, hey, based on all the information that we collect for our doctor tool, are we able to add on a feature that would do this? How much change would it make? And so Cursor is actually helping us come up with ideas that are viable to implement. In terms of, do we have the infrastructure to do so? Cursor is also helping us figure out if these are even features that would help. They're helping us come up with the design for features. And then it's going from there all the way into implementing them itself. So Cursor really right now, in the way that we use it at MindHYVE and the way that many other large companies are using coding tools like Cursor, it really is a teammate. And so right now, because it's able to understand the majority of your code base, we do use it as teammates, and I would say that that's the case now. Can relying heavily on AI for coding lead to a decline in foundational programming skills among developers? Waleed Mahmoud Suleri has asked this question, and to this I would say that the foundational programming skill for developers is fundamentally changing now with the advent of AI. In the 1950s, IBM released massive computing machines that required you to take pieces of paper, punch holes in them, which would represent binary. And these massive machines would take your piece of paper and process numbers out of them and add numbers. Now, in 2025, we don't consider that a foundational programming piece of knowledge, yet 70 years ago it was. So where we're really going towards is a future in which the foundational programming skills for engineering is not knowing if statements and for loops and assembly and a lot of the things that are taught in traditional universities, but really it's really understanding system architecture at a high level and really being able to find problems deep within industry domains and knowing how to apply software to solve them, not actually really writing code itself. So the foundational skill will change, and soon it'll shift towards things wrapping around code but not code itself. Umair's asked, what are the primary advantages to using Cursor over a CLI-based coding agent? This is a great question. So for anyone who's not familiar, CLI stands for Command Line Interface. And so this person's asking, hey, what's the difference between using a coding tool where you can see all the code and you can see all the files and there's nice pretty buttons for you versus going into a terminal and just typing to interact with the computer? And the primary advantage, I believe, to using Cursor in a traditional IDE sense is that you get a lot of the bells and whistles of your old integrated development environment platform. So you can, if you still ever want to switch in and write code by hand, it's very easy to do so. Whereas with a full CLI application, you really are just talking to the AI and trusting that the AI is writing good code. And it's not very easy for you to go in and dive in and look at the differences in code that were made. Is Cursor a better version of RAG? I'm not sure what this question means, well, Cursor utilizes RAG. I can tell you that Cursor utilizes retrieval augmented generation to pull out of your code base and give you better informed responses. But yes, it does use a kind of RAG called agentic RAG, where the AI is able to dive into files out of its own inclination. So it may decide that it wants to look at the front end files. It may decide it wants to look at the back end files. It may decide that it wants to look at specifically all the files regarding login, all the files regarding the help menu. And so this is called agentic RAG. The agent has the agency to check different files. And yes, that is a better form of RAG, but agentic RAG is not unique to Cursor. All coding tools, all AI-assisted coding tools tend to use agentic RAG. So we chose to build on Cursor primarily, again, because of the AI assistant. Ubaid began his demo explaining that Cursor is effectively really just VS Code. The CEOs and founders of Cursor made Cursor by taking VS Code's source code, copying it, and kind of retrofitting it to have an AI tool assisting you and answering questions and writing code for you. So Bilal's asking for the settings that we'd have to set up in Cursor before coding in it. And I think this might point towards maybe a misconception over how Cursor rules that file should be structured to put in your Cursor. How do we want to do our settings? And what I would say to this is that there's no one-size-fits-all answer. There's no one settings file that we could give you guys that would help you in your own coding. It really has to do with what are you trying to build and where are you trying to build it. At MindHYVE, since the primary cloud infrastructure that we use is Azure, we have our Cursor settings set up to utilize only Azure within our code. Now, if you were building an application and you were using GCP, Google, you would have your settings set up to handle Google, and you would tell the AI to only code using Google Cloud tools. It's really dependent upon your use case and what you're trying to build. If you ever are not sure on how you want to set up your Cursor rules, this is also solvable with AI. I would open up a ChatGPT tab, and I'd even go into voice mode, and I'd say, hey, I'm building an iPhone app using React Native, and I'm using Cursor to code for me. Ask it if it knows about Cursor. It will go and possibly do a Google search on what Cursor is. Then go and say to it, I want to do this app. It's going to be in React Native. I want this app to remind me when I need to go exercise. And it's going to send me notifications, and I want to be able to put in all of the food that I've eaten today and get out a report at the end of the day on how many calories I had and how many fats and proteins did I eat in that day. And so Cursor, what ChatGPT will do is, after understanding the problem that you're trying to solve, since it knows everything about cloud and it knows everything about technology stacks, it will tell you that, hey, you should use this setup. You should use Firebase for the database, and you should use React Native. And if you're deploying to iOS, then you're going to need to set up these things in the Apple Developer program. And you'll need to set up some other things for Android. And it'll tell you everything you possibly. Here's the AI model that you should use, and here's the blob storage that you should use. And now, once it knows everything, and it's gathered enough information on how the system needs to be architected with what tools, you can ask it to come up with a settings file for you to keep Cursor in track. And ChatGPT will come up with a document that says, hey, we're going to be using only React Native. We're only going to be using MongoDB for the backend. All of our hosting is going to be done on GCP. And with all that information, then once you put it into a Cursor settings, Cursor will align with what ChatGPT came up with. You won't even need to know. You won't even need to pick what cloud stack to use or what AI models to use. You can let AI solve that for you, and then you can give that file. You can have AI come up with a file to give Cursor and keep that as your settings file. So again, it's not a one-size-fits-all answer. It's dependent on your application. And if you are ever unsure on what your Cursor settings should be, you can use ChatGPT to come up with a settings file. Hopefully that makes sense. But yes, it's not always a one size fits all answer. And at MindHyve, we tend to change our cursor settings based on the application itself. Sometimes we're working on web applications. Sometimes we're working on mobile applications. We tend to stay within the Azure framework. However, perhaps, I don't know, one day that can change. Probably not. We like at Microsoft Azure a lot. They have great availability and great access to AI models. But should we ever need to change, we would simply change our cursor settings file, and cursor would align and would use whatever we choose to use in the future. Amazon, Google, Oracle, anything of that sort. Okay, and so that should be it for all of our questions. I think we've basically touched on everything. From my side, that's everything I can say. Thank you guys so much for coming. I hope this was an informative first introduction, and definitely if you're in computer science or you're a software engineer, I would strongly urge you to pick up a coding tool like Cursor, Replit Agent, Gemini, CLI, OpenAI Codex, Claude Code. There are many tools. They all tend to do basically the same thing. It's kind of like learning to code 15 years ago. If you pick up one language, you kind of know them all. So pick up a tool, get really deep into it. Not all of them are expensive, and yeah, if you are in software, this will absolutely transform your work and make you very incredible, very 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 important to the workforce in the future. Thank you all again, and good luck.